Okay, I think we can get started, right? Thank you all for joining today. This will be the part one of the webinar. We'll be talking about Gen AI. I'll give a high-level overview of what is Gen AI, what is the popular architecture RAG, what is it, what are the privacy security concerns in it. From my point of view, then Harpal here, he can give his point of view on what are the security privacy challenges as a CISO he is thinking about. And in the part two, we'll cover from a banking point of view, from a chief digital officer point of view, how are they balancing innovation and risk, right? Because Gen AI opens up a lot of opportunities. How we balance the risk in there, right? So there'll be two parts. This is a part one. We'll start with this agenda. The goal of this webinar is to give you some understanding of, hey, what is the common architecture in Gen AI? What are the privacy security concerns? What are the practical questions I should be asking or I should be thinking about privacy and security? What are the common use cases, right? These are some of the things you will get out of this webinar. We'll start with a quick introduction. I'll let Harpal go first, then I'll introduce myself.
Thank you, Amar. Hello, everybody. My name is Harpal Harika. I am the CISO of Repay, real-time electronic payments. We are in the payment processing business. Prior to Repay, I was part of a founding team with a healthcare company called Health Pilot, where we built a digital Medicare platform powered by AI. And I've spent a number of years prior to that in the healthcare and enterprise space with companies like Siebel Systems, Oracle, and eHealth. So glad to be here, Amar.
All right. Thanks, Harpal. This is Amar. I'm the founder CEO of Protecto. Prior to Protecto, I was co-founder and chief marketing officer of a company called FileCloud. We used to compete with Dropbox and Box. We were in the enterprise data collaboration space. Prior to this, I was with Microsoft's AI and Search and AI division, right? So been with enterprise data for a long time. In the past, what we have seen, there is a tremendous growth in both structured and unstructured data. And while I was at FileCloud, we saw the growth in structured data, also the growing risk along with the data, right? This is, I'll break it into three parts. One is privacy risk. Second is security, data security risk. This is a data breaches, insider risk, this kind of things. Third is a compliance, right? There are three different flavors to the risk people are very concerned about. And that led to the formation of Protecto. At Protecto, we help companies identify what is the risk they're dealing with from a data security, privacy, and compliance point of view, and help them resolve it. Right? That is the idea of the product. So I'm based out of California, and we have a team in Bangalore and California. And we have Pratik also in the line, who's our COO. He's based out of Dallas, and we have a couple of our teammates also in the call. Right. So that's a bit about us from a Protecto's point of view. I'll cover more of what we do in the later stages. Then I'll quickly jump into this one because prior to the webinar, we had been talking to customers, we had been talking to partners and general practitioners. There were some basic understanding or basic questions people had. So we thought we'll start with the very basic, what is kind of the Gen AI applications we are talking about in the next 45 minutes, right? Because this sets the stage. If you think about Gen AI, a lot of times when you use ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, we are talking to LLM directly. Right? So we are sending a question, we are getting an answer. That is one way of interacting. The answers are smart. Yes, answers are pretty accurate, but the problem is it doesn't have your context data. Right? For example, if I take a question of, hey, does my contract renewal clause look okay? It is going to look at common things and going to tell, right? If you are a service company or you are a specific hardware company, what contract details you have to put might be different, right? What your company, the geography that you're operating on, hence you might put differently in your clause, right? So how do models get this information to give you more accurate results, right? That led to one way is you can go retrain the model, right? Give the model all your data and retrain it. The problem with that approach is it's a multi-million-dollar effort to retrain models. So this whole new architecture of RAG came into existence. This is the most popular architecture we see in the market. What it does is, some of you, it might be repetitive, but it's good for the general audience. So I'm going to keep it, get in depth of RAG, but not to full depth. We'll have separate, if you need any information, you can call me. I can give another session on it. So what it does is a simple architecture where you load all your relevant data, all your company specific data into a database. When a user asks a question, hey, where is my, how is this contract look like? Or what is my resolution for this ticket? All these kind of questions when your customers or your users ask, you go to the database, collect what are the relevant document, send the question along with the relevant data to the LLM and ask, hey, here is a set of questions, here is a set of question, and here's a set of documents that I think are relevant. Based on that, can you answer this question, right? Now, the model has some context. Hey, these are the 10 historical contracts these guys have written. And this is the question, what is the renewal clause? Then the model is going to give a priority to the 10 results it got, look through it, and is going to say, hey, this is how your renewal clause should look like. So this this concept of right. Can you see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Somebody said, right? Just want to make sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So this concept of retrieval, this is called retrieval augmented generation, right? Where you take the user questions, you add some additional data along with it, and you send it to the model, get the results back, right? Now you'll get much more relevant results, right? Response from the LLM, right? This concept of retrieval augmented generation is the most popular GenAI application we see in the market, right? Most of the companies are building RAG, right? So if you have any questions, probably you can type it in the chat. If not, I will give in the end, we can go into Q&A, you can ask more questions. So we'll be covering mostly our discussion on either directly talking to LLM or through this rack. Right? That is the context. So we'll start with use cases. Harpal, from your point of view, what are the use cases you see in the market? You interact with other CISOs, you interact with other leaders. Could you give some of the use cases you see in the market?
Yes, definitely, Amar. So, first thing I would mention is, as soon as ChatGPT got released, right, everybody was very excited about it, right? And before the CISOs could even react, users were already using tools like ChatGPT, right? And they were very effective, right? These tools are capable of generating content, which is very exciting. So what I'm seeing out there is, as commercial companies are trying to explore use cases for LLMs, and a lot of them involve RAG, as you mentioned, right? Because you need context. You need your own company data context for that model to be useful to you, right? So one use case that I'm seeing a lot is knowledge base. A lot of companies have started to kind of dip their toes, trying to figure out how can they use AI more effectively, right? Even in the board rooms, this is the discussion. Like every company wants to have an AI initiative on their roadmap. Otherwise, it seems like they're not, up to speed with technology, right? So knowledge base is a big use case that companies have started to try out these models on, and they are proving very successful very quickly, right? And then next, they're looking at then using or training some of these models on some of their specific use cases. Like in financial industry, there is financial data, or healthcare companies, there is healthcare data that companies can effectively use to improve health outcomes, right? Or to, let's say, detect fraudulent transactions as they're happening, right? Which was always very tedious, right? These models can be easily integrated or hooked up into other machine learning models that the companies might have already created in the past, or some deep learning models they have available, right? So those are, and then customer service use cases. I'm seeing a lot of companies exploring how to improve customer experience with customer service teams, how to cut down the effort or man hours that the customer service teams are spending to serve the customers. They're trying to look for information. They're trying to look for documentation, right? That can be very helpful for solving trouble tickets, let's say. But now they're looking at pointing these LLM tools at, for example, Salesforce cases, right, or any other ticketing system or support management system that they might be using. Uh, but obviously, there are risks that they have to be mindful about uh, when uh, when exploring these use cases, which I think we'll talk about later. But the customer service use cases are showing up a lot are coming up a lot in my discussions with other CISOs as well. And then the third, as I mentioned, is really use cases around sensitive data, which obviously everybody is very cautious right now, on how they use and try these models on it, because there are things like masking that need to be in place in order for sensitive data to be used in some of these training models as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Harpal. So from our point of view, similar, we when we meet customers, knowledge base is something that is easy and generic and quickly you can put together a use case. Knowledge base, we have seen companies that give some HR bot. So you can ask questions like, where is my leave policy? Which form should I use for this? Or how do I apply for this particular benefit or something? These are knowledge base, nothing specific about a user. So they are loading it in that use case, we see it. And support use case is a big use case. Again, in support use cases, technical support, much easier. I'm going to load my technical document into the RAG. And it's also easy to prove my ROI, right? You can say, hey, we got so many tickets and the resolution time went from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. There are many metrics you can measure in customer support. So we see a lot more um, uh, discussions in customer support. There are two sides of problem. One is the technical documentation where you have a lot of technical documents, easy to load, not sensitive data. But then the support tickets, that's where the sensitive data come in, because the problem there is your when you have a support ticket, you don't know what type of PI that customer has shared in the ticket. They might have put their name, phone number, right, in the interaction. So when you give it to LLM and summarize, it might summarize a nice email for another customer that might have some other customer's email or personal information, right? For example, this was the problem. This is how to solve it. Along with that, there will be some PI information that got leaked. Then it's a big problem for the companies. So those sensitive data is where lot more cautious. People are cautious how to enable their tackling. We'll cover the next step, or how are they tackling this and stuff. But support tickets is where we see again a lot of traction there. And third use case we see is contracts and document generation type of use cases, where we have a company where they have um, their sales cycle takes 5 to 6 weeks. Within that, 3 to 4 weeks is purely legal, going back and forth on documents, I mean, contracts. So they want to cut that by a week so that their sales cycle goes from 6 weeks to 2, 3 weeks, which is a big win for the customer, also for them. So for that, they're building a bot, and the bot will answer instead of you going for every question to a legal. You just send a question, get the answer. and finally you can take it to the legal for the final review, right? So that it can give speed up. So we see document generation. Another use case is, yeah, simple summarization use cases. This we see in healthcare. Also, we see it in some tech and in variety of places where, hey, here is patient details, or here is yeah, a document that has all the credit history or a criminal history, driver history, and load it to the model and summarize it, right? We are helping one such company that is doing a they're summarizing the criminal history and the driver history of all the applicants. To do that, instead of they going through it, they can load it into a model, summarize it for me. Model summarize it. Again, the PII sensitivity of that problem comes in, but this is a common use case we see, right? This is some of the use cases we see. Some interesting use cases are coming in, right, which is much more complex, where multiple data sources are joined, insights are generated, things like that. But at the high level, these are the 4 or 5 major use cases we see repeatedly, right? So in the chat, there's a question. I'll give a simple answer, then we can, at the end, we can time, we will go deeper. In the market, mostly what we see is people, the question is, do you convert RAG data to a vector DB, or you connect directly to your LLM, right? The data, most of the cases, it will be large, right? It will be, you're talking about history of 100 different documents on your contracts, or thousands of tickets being submitted over a period of time. So you have to put it in a vector DB, then take it and process it. That's what we see it in the market. And if it is a small text, yes, you can put it part of your prompt or part of your system prompt. Hey, this is the text, based on that, answer it. But what we see is mostly people load it to vector DB and answer this question, right?
And I've also seen, Amar, that it's also important to have like data quality, right?
Right.
Because a lot of times, if you're taking a large data, there might be multiple copies. Some of them might be stale, right? So alongside the problem of having big data, right, it's also the quality of data.
Absolutely. If you give something bad in, you're going to get garbage in, garbage out, right? So if your context data that you're going to send to LLM is stale, your answers will also be stale. Yes, there is privacy security, then there is data quality and data freshness kind of issues as well. Some point we'll have a deep dive on RAG. RAG also has many flavors. We are talking about a simple naive RAG. Then there's very, very complex RAG solutions that people are building. That's a separate conversation. But yes, privacy security along with that, data quality is also an issue. When it comes to data privacy and security, I will just give this frame and we'll go deeper, right? How companies are thinking and tackling. So one is data protection. What is when you say data protection, what does it mean, right? For example, we'll give that contract bot I was explaining, right? So the customer loaded all historical contract into the bot. Now people can ask questions, right? Hey, tell me, is my extension clause okay? Things like that. The problem is the historical contracts has sensitive information. Who wrote the contract? To whom they wrote the contract? So I can go and start asking questions like, what did that VP write contract on? Right? I can go and ask questions like, hey, who wrote the most number of contracts in the last month, right? And I can start seeing who has the budget or who's writing contract to a particular vendor, right? So TCS or somebody, right? So who's been writing to that vendor? These kind of questions, I can get it from the bot. So these are sensitive data that can leak. So this is one set of problem. I load uh, my RAG or my GenAI application with a lot of data. Now sensitive data starts leaking, right? That's one. The second set of problems we kind of see is role-based access. Role-based access is, for example, we have seen role-based access all our life. We in a simple user interface, that's what we see. Admin sees a different user interface. Normal user sees a different interface. But in Gen AI, it's a conversation interface, right? So there is no current framework that says I can filter it out for you. Even if they filter it out, it's tricky because the data that was sent as a context, if it has it, your response will have the answer, right? So it is a complex problem. If you say, let's, for example, yeah, support ticket environment where uh, people in India supporting Indian customers cannot support European Union customers, then you have to separate the data differently inside your models, inside your RAG. Such sophisticated storage is not available today as of today. So this is one of the problems we are tackling as Protecto. I'll cover it in a bit. But this is one problem we customers face, right? I loaded the data into the model. Now I cannot segregate who has access to what, because everybody can chat with it and get the data, right? That's second. And third is the compliance, because this is very unclear. Many companies have different AI policy when it comes to what data can be shared with an LLM, right? If so, for example, uh, is Gmail, if all our emails in Gmail is used for Gemini, are we okay with it? Did we ask our consent for it, right? If they didn't ask for a consent, maybe part of the consent they already built it. Some people say, if you're using for AI, you have to go and ask for a consent again with the user. Or if you're using for AI, you should give a mechanism to remove the data from the AI model. Things like those is very uncertain there. So this is also another big problem we see in the market when it comes to compliance. In the next section, I want to talk, get Harpal's view on how are we thinking about these risks inside companies as from a CISO's point of view? And what are some of the measures you're taking, education, training, what are the measures you're taking internally? Love to know more about it.
Yeah, definitely, Amar. Um, One thing that I would say is, as soon as an application comes in scope for an audit, let's say from a CISO's perspective, right? We have to deal with PCI compliance, for example, in financial industry, right? Payment processing industry, HIPAA compliance comes into picture. A lot of privacy regulations come into picture. GLBA, there are privacy consumer protection laws with every state. So as soon as you start using LLMs, let's say for sensitive applications or sensitive use cases, right? They come into scope for the audits. And the things that you talked about, right? Role-based access. That's like one of the core requirements, right? You run through any audit, and one of the questions would be, how do you maintain segregation of duties? How do you maintain minimum necessary access, role-based access, right? That's core to any security program, right? So that's important. And as you said, right, there is no good way of using like an available foundational model and enforce a role-based access, right? So there has to be a product that you have to use to make sure that the role-based access is enforced, right? And then also sensitive information disclosure is a big one, right? When you start using a new tool, especially evolving the tools that are evolving right now, technology that is evolving very, very quickly, there is always a risk of unintended sensitive information disclosure, right? So as a CISO or as a security professional, there are a number of things that we have to get ahead of, right? One is having a clear policy, right? As I mentioned initially, your users are already using these tools, publicly available tools, even if you realize or not, right? So that's one thing. So it's better to have a good policy around it, right? Make it clear to them how, what can they do and what they cannot do with these tools. That's the first thing that I did. I created a specific policy for use of Gen AI tools, recognizing the need for it, right? Generally, companies would have a general policy, right? Access policy. But for this, I decided to roll out a specific policy for Gen AI since it was that critical. And then there we kind of listed exactly what kind of tools they can use and what they need to be careful. For example, data masking is important if you want to use a Gen AI tool for processing sensitive data, right? So that's one thing. And then educating the user on on the risks associated with these tools, not to stop and the innovation, right? I mean, Gen AI is here to stay, and it's going to grow very, very fast, and it's going to be very useful for companies to gain competitive advantage, right? So in order to grow the business, it's important. But at the same time, as security teams, our job is to make sure that we highlight the risks and we put some controls in place to minimize or mitigate these risks. And then, recently OWASP came out with their top 10 vulnerabilities for LLM. They did a great job. And I've shared this with everybody. And Amar, maybe after this session, we can share it with the audience as well, a link to that.
Hmm.
But they came out with the top 10 vulnerabilities for OWASP. That's a great document to share internally with the teams. It's very helpful. I've shared with our dev teams who are handling LLM based workloads right now. So those are some of the things you can do immediately.
Yeah.
And as I said, this is still evolving and will continue to evolve with this.
Apart from OWASP, any other organization is doing a good job in giving frameworks, Harpal, even it's in a P0 or early draft.
Yeah,
Anything
so
else?
NIST, I think NIST and CISA, they have done some good job there as well. There are some, there is a risk framework that they've
Yeah,
created, which is a
yeah.
good one to read as well.
Okay. This is the risk RMF, right? Risk management
That's
framework
right,
we're talking.
risk
Okay, yeah,
management
yeah.
framework.
That's a good one, yes. This ISO 42001, have this is more of a European thing, but is US companies aware or using that, Harpal?
I think that everybody's still trying to catch up, but companies who are, let's say, ISO 27001
Yeah.
compliant, they are more looking into it. Like I personally
Okay.
haven't looked into it yet
Okay.
because we use a NIST framework
Yeah.
as a
Okay.
common security framework. So it depends on, what framework they're already using. They're kind of aligning towards that.
Okay, awesome. As within the CISO's community, is there any time frame or some kind of a goal you're having, saying that within next 6 months, these are the framework we'll implement, or these are the measures we will do for privacy and security in Gen AI, right?
Yeah, so I think we are staying on top of all these what these organizations, the consortiums are coming up with, right?
Okay.
And then again, these kind of discussions that we are doing, these are very helpful, in fact, right? Staying ahead of the game, basically learning from the experts, getting involved with them, right? Having a proactive approach, because as I said, this is growing so fast, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So
And to be this every 2-3 months we see a big jump in model performance, the cost, and also even new abilities, right? For example, generating videos, audios. We are just dealing with text here. This can get into, if we get to multimodal, the problem will explode in different levels. This is good. So I'll go to the next section, which is I'll spend 5 minutes on it, then I'll open it for Q&A. All right. So this one, one of the things I talked about is, hey, there is this RAG architecture where you can connect your data and let customers ask questions. We saw two major problems with that, right? One is your sensitive data is not controlled. Two, role-based access is not enabled. These two will lead to the third problem, which is also a compliance problem, right? So if we can solve the data protection problem and role-based access problem, it'll be a good solution for the customers. So that's when we came with the concept of SecRAG, a secure RAG for the market. So what we are offering for the customers is you can bring whatever data you have into SecRAG, like connect the data to SecRAG. We will do the whole RAG part along with the security for you. So at the end, what you will get is a AI assistant or a chatbot that talks with your sensitive data, and it can pull the relevant information, like what I was mentioning about RAG, right? It will pull the relevant information, create a response that is accurate and that is relevant for you, all with the security and privacy built in, right? For example, if you're loading one of our customers, the contract bot I was explaining, they use SecRAG. The reason why they use SecRAG is when they load their contracts into the model or into the RAG, Protecto goes to the each contracts, identify what is sensitive in it, replaces with a token, right? So you might be thinking, oh, that why is that complex? I can use a data masking tool, right? The problem is your data masking tool will remove the data context. Your contract have two parts to it. Same person would have written 5 different contracts. If you break the connection between the data, your data quality will, their data integrity, data context will go away. Then what happens is when you send it to the model, you'll give a wrong answer, accuracy will die, right? So what Protector does is it identifies sensitive data and it masks in such a way that data is still usable. The utility is maintained, right? So they use contracts bot can give a very accurate answer without knowing the PII behind this. This one, right? Um, Second is the role-based access. One of our customers, the use case I was explaining about the support bot, they are using SecRAG to identify or answer questions on support tickets. But the problem they have is they deal with many financial institutions. And the financial institution, if you're supporting Wells Fargo, Chase data shouldn't be in Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo's data shouldn't be in Chase when they're supporting and answering questions. Even by accident, they cannot leak it. Even summary everywhere, they want to be super careful, right? So they want to make sure if you're answering a general technical questions are fine, general shareable data is fine, but there are walls that separate certain customers. That data cannot be used for your answering questions. So that in those cases, what Protector does is it gives the customer ability to control the access. They can say anybody supporting Chase will not see Wells Fargo's data. Same thing, and that way they can enforce role-based access and give right level of control over the data. They get the right level of control over the data, right? This is what we call the SecRAG. Love to talk more. If you are interested, visit protector.ai, where we give free of course demos and free trials. It is as easy as connecting your data and getting results in a form of a bot with security and privacy already built in, right? We also give APIs for you to integrate, extend, and customize, right? So I'll stop here. There are a couple of questions I'll address. Then if there is interest, I can go deeper into SecRAG. The first question is, does Protecto offer solution that geared towards, no, in first question, instead of redacting the private data, you obfuscate data with unique key. Yes, right? Removing the private data alone will hurt your performance, right? For example, there are two tickets, there are two people interacting, right? Then if you switch the names or just remove the names, model will not know who's answering, who's asking the questions, right? Within the agent versus a customer, and you'll get confused very quickly. So it has to be a unique key. You give it to each of the sensitive data, right? That is one. The second question is, does Protecto offer solutions that are geared towards smaller organization? I would specifically looking for data loss prevention solution for a staff of 8. Okay, so we have a solution called GPT Guard. So GPT Guard is geared for smaller organizations, more of a DLP product. What it does is instead of you directly going and chatting with ChatGPT, it adds a layer on top of ChatGPT. So anytime you type sensitive data, it filters the sensitive data, it converts into a token that is understandable by the model, but the data is not, the PI data is not actually shared with the LLM, right? So such a way that you will be chatting with a LLM as if you are chatting and sending PI, but in between Protecto will be identifying what is sensitive and replacing with tokens and protecting your sensitive data, right?
And Amar, I would also like to
Yeah.
add, right? So as companies, especially smaller companies, if they're planning to lock down, for example, use Protecto, right? for accessing ChatGPT, then they might need to lock down the access to regular ChatGPT. For example, make sure your devices have those controls or you have those web filtering or
Sure.
whitelisting
Makes
implemented
sense.
so the users don't still go to ChatGPT directly because that's a user behavior, right? That happens that you need to put controls around as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Harpal. Yeah, if you give options, people will do always do go directly and start using. If you want to enforce, then you should say, block that and always give access to something like GPT guard that will keep your data safe, right? That's one. Then the questions on GDPR is a strict compliance for EU. Do you think market for LLM security is mature to handle it currently? So GDPR, we are closely following um, the regulatory frameworks that coming out of EU and also US when it comes to AI. GDPR in general, right, is about protecting EU citizens or EU residents' since identifiable data and also personal data. The complex part in AI is one of our customers, they have a data residency problem, meaning they are based out of Sweden. Their customer is a Swedish government. So the Swedish government doesn't want the data to be sent to a model that is based out of US or anywhere else, right? One way to tackle it, I'll run the model within my prem, like a Llama 2 inside my uh, on-premise and get get process the data. The problem is running these models are expensive, right? Sometimes if you're not using the models and having the GPUs, it'll cost a lot, right? Rather, you might use something hosted publicly and get the value out of it. And also GPT-4 Gemini might give you better performance, better accurate results than in your own privacy data, right? In those cases, they have used Protecto to remove PI data so that the data they're sending to the model does not have PI in it, so that they can still be compliant with the GDPR because they're not sharing something personal. Anonymized data is what's sending to the model, get the results, and Protector can pseudonymizing it. So Protector can put the data back and show into this. So overall, GenAI still is evolving, and LLMs again are trying to meet regulations and things. But when you build a RAG kind of architecture, yes, you have to make sure you put a product like Protecto in between to make you comply with GDPR, right? So what is the risk of over masking LLM performance? So this is a very good question. Uh, the masking of the data is the requirement from the privacy or security, right? They are saying these are a set of things you have to mask it. There's no way around it, right? You can say if you give a SSN, your model will do well, but you cannot do SSN. You have to pick the next big thing, which is mask data. So the idea of masking is to do the minimal to protect your data. Minimal meaning the needed set of measures to protect your data. Over masking, then again you start losing the utility of the data and your response rates will come down. So you have to make sure you do the necessary things that meet your security and privacy, right? Whatever you talk to your CISOs, you talk to your internal policies and what data can be shared, what can data has to be protected, do that, right? If you're going and remove everything without the need for it, it's not needed, right? It'll impact your performance. Then I think we have a last.
And
Yeah,
maybe
go ahead, Harpal.
expensive as well,
Yeah,
Amar.
yeah,
When we say over masking, right? You start masking things that you don't need to. It's also expensive.
right. Agreed. Then you are going to compute for it. You are going to mask it. Again, yeah, agreed. If you don't need to mask certain things and mask only the sensitive, do only the sensitive parts too. Agreed. Um, Then the last question, when you say token, you are not referring to tokenization used in transform model active, but you're referring to alphanumeric key. Yes, this is a good question. So token is a common word used in the case of LLMs, right? It is in the transform model, again, it's used as the tokens. The tokens I was talking about is replacing your sensitive data with a unique ID, right? Unique alphanumeric or numeric alphabetic character that is going to be a unique key for each of the entities. That's what we call it as a token. It's a different context. I think I answered most of the questions that came in the chat.
So
You know,
quickly, for the, I was trying to understand, right? So when we say unique key, so example would be, let's say if there are multiple data stores, right?
Yeah.
And information is stored related to, let's say my record is stored in multiple databases. Somehow there is a credit card number stored somewhere, my PII stored somewhere else, right? And then when you say there is a unique key, so the system will take all of that data and replace my name with a unique key, so you can kind of maintain the context and still, treat it as
Absolutely.
somebody, one individual's data across the board, right?
Thanks for clarifying, Harpal. This is very important. If you take, for example, John from Salesforce, you have, say, a Salesforce information of John and support ticket from John, and you give a different token for them, your model, your RAG or your model will not be able to join, so you will not get accurate results, right? So when you give a unique tokens, right, you have to make sure your token that you get for all your data sources, even within data sources, all the different records or different documents will have consistent token, right? If John or Jane or somebody is there, their data is always consistently tokenized so that model can connect the data and give the accurate results. Very important. Yes, yes, Paul. That's what Protecto does, right? One of the advantages using Protecto is anytime a data comes through us, we'll give a consistent token so that the model understands the data better, right? The information loss is not there. Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, this is fantastic. So we have a couple of more minutes. Any practical tips, Harpal? The policy is one, OWASP is one. We'll share the link. Anything, if you can share it, that'll be good. Then I probably will close the.
Yeah, I think one thing I would say is our, the dev teams, product teams, and security teams, they need to work very closely on this, right? A lot of teams, there is friction between teams that kind of, leads to, situations where teams are not able to innovate, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if they can all work very closely, this is a unique opportunity ahead of us, right? With the LLM models and generative AI, especially, right?
Yeah.
That's how I would say, all of us need to work together and find innovative solutions to these innovative technologies that we have seen.
Agreed. So that is that's something I would also agree 100%. This is in the past, people think privacy and security as a last step. That approach will not work in here because you build model, build RAG. It is easy to do a POC and show the results. And you think about privacy and security at the end, all your data model, everything will be messed up now. You had to start almost from scratch. It's not like adding a filter or adding a role-based access at the end that can solve this problem, right? So working very closely with privacy security from the design, from the POC stage of your project is very, very critical when it comes to Gen AI, right? Because the amount of rework you will do is unbelievably expensive. So better to do upfront, have a good discussion, collaborative, and again, too much tightening also will cut the innovation. So it's about striking the balance between the dev and business and the privacy and security. Yes, agree. This is fantastic. Thanks, Harpal. Really appreciate it. Always talking to you is fun. Learn something. This is fantastic webinar. The part two, we'll be announcing it soon in a week or so. And that we will cover from a bank's point of view, how and deeper into RAG and problems. Love to get all of you who are in the part of this conversation into the mix. And we will share this recording with the participants also through LinkedIn, who are all express their interest. Thanks all for joining. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.